There's one sentence that cuts deeper than any insult, deeper than anger, deeper than open hatred. Because it doesn't come from emotion. It doesn't come from loss of control. It comes from something colder. And if you've ever heard this sentence directed at you, you weren't dealing with someone who snapped. You were standing in front of someone who knew exactly what they were doing. Most people cause harm in moments of weakness. They lash out when hurt. They say things they regret. But there's a different kind of harm. The kind that's planned. The kind that's intentional. The kind that comes with full awareness of the damage it will cause. And the people who cause this harm don't apologize afterward. They don't feel remorse. Sometimes they even tell you directly what they did. And that's when you hear it. The sentence that changes everything. Before we get to the sentence itself, you need to understand the psychology behind it. Because this isn't about a bad day or a heated argument. This is about something that develops slowly, quietly, often invisibly in someone's mind. Every human being carries what some call a shadow. The parts of ourselves we don't want to see. Our jealousy, our resentment, our capacity for cruelty. The shadow itself isn't evil. It becomes dangerous only when it's unconscious, when we refuse to acknowledge it exists. Most people try to stay good by burying their shadow deeper and deeper. They distract themselves. They rationalize. They avoid looking too closely at who they really are. But some people choose differently. They don't suppress their shadow. They feed it. When the shadow is nurtured instead of acknowledged, it grows. And eventually it stops being something a person has. It becomes something a person is. When this happens, perception itself changes. The individual no longer sees others as separate human beings. Instead, they see projections, reflections of their own unresolved darkness. They begin to assign their rage to you, their insecurity to you, their shame to you. You become a container for everything they cannot tolerate within themselves. This is projection, and projection is never neutral. Over time, it hardens into something far more corrosive. Contempt. Contempt is not anger. Anger still recognizes the other person as human. Contempt does not. Contempt is a belief that another person is beneath you, unworthy of empathy, undeserving of dignity. Contempt is a settled psychological position. Once it forms, moral restraint erodes. The person no longer feels bound by the invisible rules that prevent most people from causing deliberate harm. This is where intentional cruelty begins. And here's what makes it so disturbing. People who cause deliberate harm don't see themselves as cruel. They see themselves as justified. The human mind is remarkably skilled at self-deception, especially when it wants to cross moral boundaries without experiencing guilt. Long before the harm takes place, the mind begins preparing for it. The person builds a case against you internally. They reinterpret your words as attacks, your boundaries as disrespect, your silence as manipulation. They collect evidence selectively. They rehearse conversations where you are always the villain and they are always the victim. This is not memory. This is rehearsal. This rehearsal is essential. It allows them to commit harm without remorse. By the time the act occurs, they have already convinced themselves it was necessary, even deserved. And when the damage is finally done, something revealing often happens. The mask slips. The shadow speaks. The sentence itself is simple, almost casual. I knew exactly what I was doing to you, or variations of it. I meant for this to happen. I wanted you to feel this. These words are not spoken in rage. They are spoken with clarity. And that clarity is what makes them chilling. This is not a confession. It is a declaration. The person is telling you that your pain was intentional, calculated, personal. When the shadow fully takes control, it no longer hides. It wants recognition. It wants dominance. Speaking this sentence is not about honesty. It is about power. When someone admits they hurt you intentionally, they are not relieved. They are satisfied. Premeditated harm creates psychological investment. The person has spent emotional energy planning your suffering, imagining it, anticipating it. Your pain becomes a return on that investment. That is why they want you to know. They want you to understand that you were not spared, that your well-being was never a consideration. They want you to feel the weight of their control over your inner world. This creates what some call ego inflation. a false sense of superiority built on another person's suffering. But the danger does not end with the act itself. In many cases, it intensifies afterward, because now the psyche faces a problem. The person has crossed a moral line. An ego cannot tolerate seeing itself as cruel, so it does something strategic. It reverses reality. This is where gaslighting begins. The same person who admitted they planned your pain will now minimize it, reframe it, question your reaction. They will tell you that you are too sensitive, too dramatic, too unforgiving. This is psychic invasion, the attempt to colonize another person's inner world with a distorted version of events. If they can make you doubt your perception, they don't have to face their own. And if you've heard this sentence, if someone looked you in the eyes and told you they knew exactly what they were doing when they hurt you, I want to know, what was the moment you realized you weren't dealing with a mistake, but with intention? Drop a comment below. I read every single one. And your words might be exactly what someone else scrolling through needs to hear right now. Here's something crucial to understand. If someone gaslights you after intentional harm, they are not finished with you. What follows is often driven by something deeper. Envy. Some people do not want resolution. They want superiority. They need you to remain broken, so their internal narrative remains intact. Your healing threatens everything they told themselves to justify their behavior. If you recover, if you grow, if you regain clarity and strength, it proves their power was temporary. That realization is intolerable to someone driven by contempt. This is why they often return. Quietly, subtly, a message disguised as concern. A comment meant to reopen wounds. A rumor designed to undermine your progress. Resentment is poison. Your suffering was supposed to neutralize their inner turmoil. When it doesn't, panic sets in. And that is why your healing is not just personal. It is destabilizing to them. So what do you do when you recognize this? When you realize you were not dealing with someone who lost control, but with someone who maintained it throughout. When you understand that your pain was not collateral damage, but the intended outcome. First, you stop expecting remorse. People who speak this sentence do not feel guilt. They feel vindication. Waiting for an apology is waiting for something that will never come. Not because they can't change, but because they don't see anything wrong with what they did. Second, you recognize that this was never about you. Projection always reveals more about the person projecting than the person receiving. Their darkness is theirs. Their contempt is theirs. Their need to harm is theirs. You were simply the nearest available container. Third, you understand that staying close to someone like this is dangerous. Not because they will harm you once, but because they will harm you repeatedly. Intentional cruelty is not a mistake. It is a pattern. And patterns repeat until something breaks them. But here's what matters most. You do not have to become like them to protect yourself. You do not have to develop contempt to defend against it. You do not have to nurture your own shadow to survive someone else's. The highest form of resistance is not revenge. It is transformation, setting boundaries without cruelty, speaking truth without obsession, walking away without carrying their poison. The person who hurt you wanted fragmentation. Wholeness is your rebellion. Healing is not forgiveness for them. It is freedom for you. When someone says, "I knew exactly what I was doing to you," believe them. But do not let that sentence imprison you. Let it awaken you. There's something people don't tell you about intentional harm. The person who caused it expects you to carry it forever. They expect you to remain defined by what they did. They expect your story to end where their cruelty began. But here's what they don't understand. Our deepest wounds are often gateways, not to bitterness, not to becoming what hurt us, but to consciousness, to clarity about who we are and who we choose to be. You were not destroyed by hearing that sentence. You were awakened by it, because now you know what deliberate cruelty looks like. You know how the shadow operates when it's in control. You know the difference between someone who makes mistakes and someone who makes choices. And that knowledge changes everything. It changes who you trust. It changes what you tolerate. It changes how you protect yourself. Not with walls that keep everyone out, but with discernment that lets the right people in. The person who hurt you wanted you to believe you were powerless, that you were simply the victim of their superior will. But they were wrong, because the moment you understand what happened, You reclaim something they try to take, your agency. You get to decide what this experience means. You get to decide whether it breaks you or builds you. You get to decide whether their darkness becomes yours or whether you transform into light. This is not about forgiveness. You do not owe forgiveness to someone who planned your suffering. This is about freedom. The freedom to stop carrying what was never yours to carry. The freedom to stop waiting for acknowledgement that will never come. The freedom to build a life where intentional cruelty has no place. They never expected you to become whole. That is why your growth is your victory. If these words reach something in you that you couldn't name before, if you recognize your own experience in this exploration, stay connected. Subscribe to this space where we name the truths few people speak out loud. Because understanding what happened doesn't erase it, but it does transform your relationship with it. And that transformation is where your power lives. Thank you for being here. Thank you for staying. See you soon.